Hey, it's Abby from Facing Pages, and I'm coming to you from the floor. My favorite position. Not really, but I think sometimes when we have chronic illnesses that are not visible, people see you in your day to day and they have a hard time kind of understanding that things aren't always stable or things aren't always the way that they see them. And so I thought I would come at you from my position, the position that I assume when I'm not feeling well, and tell you a little bit about it. I have gastroparesis. This is something that I've probably always had in some form or other, but was I diagnosed with some years back. And essentially, what it means is that my stomach is slow. I have a lazy stomach. I'm also a lazy blinker. Found that out from an eye doctor. I don't know. I just have some lazy body parts for some reason. Um, there is a wide range of experiences with gastroparesis, and for me, for a while, about 10, 12 years ago, can't remember exactly when, I was having a really hard time. When I was eating whatever I ate, I felt really sick afterwards. I was having a lot of difficulty with energy levels, of course, and having a really hard time feeling like I could function. I started losing a lot of weight, and it was kind of reminiscent of a couple of past experiences that I'd had. And including one in college when I had to get all kinds of tests. I had a gastroenterologist, and we did some just basic treatments, like I was taking Prilosec and Propulsid for a while, and eventually my system stabilized and I was fine. So then again, about 10 years later, I was having trouble again, and this time it was much worse, and I was really worried. I was actually worried. I am also emetophobic, which means that I have phobias about throwing up. And so when I was, feeling sick all the time, I adopted a couple of ways to manage it. And one of them is exactly what I'm doing right now, which is lying down with my knees bent. A lot of times I'll prop them against a wall also. And this sort of position for some reason calms my system. Um, I had a lot of tests when I was diagnosed, and I had a gastric emptying study. The gastric emptying study involves you eating something, and then it has a tracer in it, and then you're either scanned or you have a picture, and then you go away, and then you come back and have another picture. So two different links to the test. And um, the emptying study that I had it was like a little cup of oatmeal, and then I had to sit with a machine over me for about an hour and a half. I didn't love it. I'm actually really good about medical tests most of the time. I had my shuffle with me, my iPod shuffle. I learned lyrics to like 3 different Nico Case songs by playing them over and over and over again. And that kept me calm during the test. When I went in for my results with the doctor, he said, well, your results are off the charts. Like, your stomach is extremely slow. You've probably had this for a while. And you can go to a gastroenterologist. A test was performed by a surgeon. You can go to a gastroenterologist, and they will do some more tests and see if they can find out what's causing this. So the causes of gastroparesis are only partially known. Sometimes it happens as a result of diabetes, which I do not have. Sometimes it's part of an autoimmune. Several autoimmune diseases will cause this problem because of damage through the system. Usually gastroparesis at its core is related to the vagus nerve, which is a nerve that goes from up here all the way down through your digestive system or into your stomach. And so the nerve just either doesn't work or doesn't work well. So it's supposed to stimulate your digestion, which then helps things move through your system, through the rest of your system. And in some people, it just stops. It doesn't work at all. When you are having when you're having gastroparesis issues, you either can't eat much at all, or you feel really sick, or you throw up. Some people get really intense pain, and there are certain things that you can do to ameliorate that. You can have antacids and things like that, like you can have prescription strength medications and so on. Sometimes people will have a pacemaker put in. There's an actual pacemaker that you can put into your digestive system, which stimulates the nerve, stimulates digestion. You can also have gastroparesis from having surgeries. Like surgery can sort of stop your system. And none of these ended up being true for me. I have idiopathic gastroparesis, so there is an unknown cause. And it's not great knowing that. My gastroenterologist at that time kind of joked with me. He's like, if we can't figure out, we'll send you to House. House MD was still on at the time. And I thought that was kind of funny. And then it ended up not being funny, haha, so much as funny, because I actually was, in fact, unable to find out what the cause was. I had autoimmune tests, nuclear antibody tests, essentially. Part of the reason is that I also have Raynaud's syndrome, which is if you go to the let's just for an example, I used to go to hockey a lot, hockey games, and I'd come out of there with my toes. Even if I was wearing nice wool socks and thick boots or whatever, my toes would be white, like frostbite white. And then it would take forever to get them back to normal. For me, it could also be like, even in the middle of the summer, if I'm holding a cold pop and then I put it down, my fingers might go white. Some people have it exceptionally badly, and so their system triggers really easily. Mine used to trigger more. Actually, beneficially, as I've gained weight, mine has triggered less. My body has a little bit easier of a time with my circulation and with the reactions. So that at least has mostly stabilized. But I was at the doctor, and my fingers were blue. My hands were blue because doctor's offices are always cold. It was a cold day. And so he took one look at my hands. Was like, okay, we'll do some nuclear antibody tests, which is just a blood test, because those two things can both be linked to autoimmune. And I don't have that. I don't have an autoimmune, but it was a really interesting theory for a while. I was kind of interested because it was a kind of a systemic issue. And I was intrigued about that possibility, but it ended up not being the case for me. So I didn't have answers. We were doing more symptomatic treatments. I started on Reglan for a little bit. Reglan, though, is a medication that I had a reaction to in the past at a certain dosage. On even the lesser dosage, even though it helped, it also made my jaw clench. I noticed I was clenching my jaw, and so they took me right off it because you can have extrapyramidal symptoms, meaning neurological symptoms that could become permanent if you don't stop taking them. So I did get off of that, but on the upside, it seemed to have kind of rebooted my system a little bit. I have absolutely no medical basis for this. I'm not a medical professional. So understand that all of this is my own personal experience and ideas just from lived day to day. But coming off the Reglan was a good idea, but as I said, it rebooted my system, and I started to be able to eat again, and I there are definitely some things that I have to stay away from. So with gastroparesis, most of the time that means foods that have a lot of spice to them. I am supposed to be low acid, meaning, less of the tomatoey kinds of things, except that I love Italian food and I love like fruits. Um, Another one of my major issues is raw fruits and vegetables. So when I was a kid, I ate raw fruits and vegetables all the time. I ate apples constantly. I ate a lot of carrots, even through, college and then my young professional life. Like raw carrots were like the perfect snack, but, and I can still eat them, but I have to be really careful and eat them in moderation. And, if I have a period where I've been eating, salads or something, I have to be really careful because they do tend to upset my stomach. Um, it's a little bit awkward having to be on a low fiber diet, which is essentially what I was doing. That was my instruction. The grocery store doesn't have a low fiber section. If you wanted to know that, my mom, bless her heart, went and asked once. She asked if they had a low fiber section. They do not. That's not a need, I guess, high enough for the community. But I had kind of a rigorous diet initially of carbs, like fairly simple carbs, like bread that didn't have a lot of fiber in it, cereals, a lot of cereals. Oh, so many cereals. And I still eat a lot of cereal. It tends to be one of my safer foods. So I know my safe foods that I can return to. Um, I'm on the floor tonight because I ate unwisely and I just wasn't feeling well. I actually took a really long nap. I've been tired today, and I got up not feeling so well, and so I lay down. Um, we did the mailing for Mid American Review today. I was very functional all day. I was getting around, and basically for our mailing, we do it ourselves. We send out all their subscribers and contributors issues, the journals, literary journals that we have exchange relationships with. We send them one, they send us one. We have some lifers that receive the journal, so they get their copies. We sent out about 800 journals today. We still have another maybe 50 to send, a few addresses we're waiting on, the internationals that we need to send, and so on. So basically what this involved for me is, schlepping our envelopes and labels and such over to the postal warehouse at my university and setting up tables and chairs, setting up the books, setting up everything, and then we actually do an assembly line. We actually do two assembly lines. We run the first half of our zip codes and the second half of our zip codes down the table. And our stuff has to stay in zip code order. We send standard bulk mail, and that as a nonprofit, and that means we have to have at least 200 pieces. Check, no problem. They have to be identical. Check, no problem. The pieces have to be in zip code order. So we do a big sort of our data, and then we print the labels, and then they stay in zip code order, and we have lots of checks built in. Then we go. And this was my students' first experience of this. My grad students, most of them, had not done it before, and we haven't done it in a big group for a while. We just happened to have a journal done when lots of people were around. So for the first time in kind of a while, we had a large group, a whole class full of people to work on the mailing. And it was nice to have that, but I'm still running around a lot, still lifting boxes, which is fine. That's part of my job. I haul boxes of books around. As I'm getting older, my body is less interested in doing that. And I have to respect that. I have to acknowledge that my back is going to have problems and I'm going to be more tired and everything. So the mailing obviously wore me out. And then my stomach had this reaction, which isn't uncommon to have a flare up after really exhausting activity. Especially if I haven't been eating super great for a couple of days, which is definitely true. I did have a mashed potato cup, like one of those microwavable ones for lunch, and usually that's a safe food for me, pretty decently. It's just what I ate when I came home. I kind of scarfed it, and then like lunch meat and cheese and bread, and then I fell asleep, and obviously that was a bad idea. But it's hard to predict. It's hard to predict sometimes. It seems like a fine idea to eat at one moment. It very well might not be. Or even if I've been eating safe foods, sometimes I just have a flare up. Sometimes my stomach's like, haha, just kidding. I'm not going to work today. And I'll spend a lot of time on the floor trying to feel well, or trying to feel well enough to go back to my bed or to get up and get around, try to hydrate, that kind of thing. So I I guess what I would kind of classify myself now is that I have sort of a mild gastroparesis, and with occasional flare-ups. But I am in much better condition than I was when I first was diagnosed. I'm also in much better condition than a lot of other folks who have gastroparesis. This is a disorder that people can die from. People might have to be on feeding tubes. There are different types of feeding tubes that people have to use because their bodies literally cannot manage eating. So I am really grateful that I'm in the kind of condition that I am. It doesn't usually interfere with my work life at all. I'm also pretty stubborn about things. So at least for now, I'm able to work mostly normally. And I wasn't sure for a while that that was going to be true. I had the lowest teaching evaluations I'd ever had that semester when I was really struggling. And that, of course, hurt. But I also was able to not take it too personally because I know that like my ability to function in class was impeded. And my students knew that I wasn't well, but many of my colleagues or folks who are in academia will know that evaluations, they, they're not necessarily the best measure of what you're doing in a classroom. They can start to feel like a popularity contest and so on. But at the same time, I was not in a good place, and I'm fully aware of that. So normally I'm pretty well on a day-to-day basis, which is great. It is exhausting though. Anyone with a chronic illness will tell you that it's tiring, it's exhausting. Your body is constantly battling. And so even when things are invisible, and even when you're doing really well, people have a lot of managing systems. And so I think it's really important to respect when people that if they tell you they're having problems, or if they're taking time for health and wellness, you got to believe that. Like, you have to believe that and trust that, because they know their bodies, they know what's best. They'll be more able to plug back in if they take that time. That's what I've learned. It's not always possible to do that. I get it. But at the same time, I think it is important to understand that people with chronic illnesses want to be involved, and they want to do things. They want to work and to live and to contribute. They want to make a difference just as much as anyone else. They just have to manage their ability to do so. And I think you can trust that. Like, I continually hope that our healthcare system and our employment system grow towards enabling people to do their best work, even amidst issues that they might be having. So gastroparesis affects somewhere between 1% and 2% of the population, depending on how many or what statistics you're looking at. It also affects women more than men, generally speaking, and we're not yet sure why. And by we, I mean the medical profession, and those of us that struggle with it are not sure why. It's something that I think most people don't know about, but I have been experiencing. I've been experiencing more people that I talk to understanding what it is, or they know someone else who has it, which is really interesting to me. I know that that might lead to the perception that it's on the rise, but that's not necessarily true. It also is very probable that there's more knowledge about it, more knowledge, more research, and so more people are getting diagnosed. It's less likely that the symptoms will just be put down to like anxiety or another type of stomach condition like IBS or the just emotions, which is definitely something that I was asked as a teenager. I was like, "Are you having boy trouble?" Um, I did not punch the doctor in the face. He was a very sweet man and he was just doing his best. But I was also very insulted by that question. I think that, as testing continues and as methods of treatment continue to be tested, we have the ability to advocate on behalf of people with this condition. And one example is the growth of some like electrical stimulation techniques similar to the pacemaker, but also other forms of stimulating the vagus nerve and getting it to operate the way that it's supposed to, and in aiding digestion. So treatment options have kind of come in and out of fashion or in and out of usage for various reasons. Oops. The way that I'm lying is sometimes makes my calf muscles cramp. I always have really tight calf muscles, really tight um, hamstring muscles too, and just working through a cramp right now. It seems to be going away, but so domperidone is an example that was legal in the U.S. However, it was being used off-label to induce lactation or to improve lactation, and it was also found to potentially cause serious cardiac events. So the FDA withdrew approval. It's not allowed in the U.S. anymore. You can get a mercy prescription, or like a research associated prescription and get it from, at least you used to be able to get it from Canada. I'm not sure if you still can through that process. But it is obviously it's really difficult. So even though it was one of the most viable medications, it also had really serious flaws, and is not used for that anymore. Erythromycin is another used item. That's an antibiotic, and it's unfortunately for a lot of people causes other severe digestion issues, as it did for me. So I had to stop taking that pretty much right away. So Reglan is used as an anti-nausea medication. That's kind of part of its function, and it can also be used in the short term for that kind of thing for several different digestive complaints. But as I mentioned, like it can cause neurological issues. So it has dangers as well. There are treatments that are always being experimented on, different trials, but this is not one of the highest priorities medically. So it isn't progressing super quickly, but I do think the higher prevalence of people having this issue will potentially boost the research. The fact that it's a women's health issue is not in its favor. Those often get overlooked, especially if they are fairly complex, and caused by multiple things, and because the symptoms can often look like other things, so it's just not as recognized. What the doctor who did my uh, endoscopy then, and then also my gastric emptying study told me is that you might have a mild gastroparesis and not know it. You might not be symptomatic all the time. Like you may not have symptoms all the time. And when you think about it, that does make sense. I mean, food sits in our stomachs, and you get used to a certain level of what that feels like. It you don't notice, but then something goes wrong and you do notice. You might have, really horrible reflux, or you might actually have vomiting, you might have pain, a lot of the most classic common symptoms. But it's important to kind of track your symptoms in that regard and kind of know what's normal for you. I did a lot of food diary journaling at the time, and activity level journaling. Each time I've had these issues, really, each time I have a major, major flare up, like a long time thing before I got diagnosed. Um, Now I'm much better at knowing my triggers. I'm much better at knowing when I need to back off. And I get a lot more rest. I take care of my mental state as much as I can. Because, if your body's out of whack, if your system's out of whack, then your brain chemistry is also going to be off. And I'll talk more about that in another video later. But it can be a long road, and finding answers can be really difficult. And that's why it's so important to advocate for yourself and to know that you have the best knowledge over your body, and to educate yourself about what is possible. I know a lot of medical professionals hate it when people are, Googling symptoms and or doing, I love the WebMD symptom checker or whatever, but you can also learn a lot that way. And there's nothing wrong with, reading some medical journals once in a while. I used to read medical journals all the time, just out of interest, and then also tracking treatments, once I did have this problem. And you have to, again, be aware of yourself, be aware of whether that's going to upset you more or whether it's going to give you ammunition, if you're not being treated well in a medical situation. But definitely stay focused. I think is really important. Stay focused on your health and what you can do to strengthen your relationship with your body and understanding it, understanding what it needs, what it's asking for. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you later.